years after starting this channel, I've somehow made 100 episodes. To look ahead to the next 100, I thought it'd be fun to visit the very first restaurant I ever covered, Mon Lay Won. 10,000 miles of clouds, Chinese the Monaco in New York. Hi, my name is Christy, and this is the American Chinese Food Show. Just a month ago, like it was meant to be, I found a Mon Lay Won menu on eBay. The listing read, Rare 1930s Chinese de Monaco NYC menu. Price? $35 plus shipping and tax. It's probably not the holy grail, but for me, it's one of the most meaningful menus. Because it's what started all of this, my journey into the history of Chinese food in America. Also is not from the 1930s, it's likely from just before 1910. And for $35, it felt like winning the lottery. In my first episode, I called Mon Lay Won an upscale restaurant. I briefly went through the menu sections, who dined there, how expensive it was. I even went down the rabbit hole trying to figure out who the image on the menu cover was. There was so much to say, I had to make a second video just on the food. All while I was still figuring out how to use Adobe Premiere and trying not to sound horrible with a cheap mic. 4 years later, I like to think I am better at research, maybe? So how would I approach the Mon Lay Won menu differently now? The eBay menu I found is slightly later than the one in that first episode, which dated from before 1900. So let's go further back. The earliest mention of Mon Lay Won on Pell Street is from 1895. According to the Buffalo Inquirer, a new Chinese restaurant had just opened on the third floor of 24 Pell Street. It was owned by three merchants, Li Aowei, Chu Fong, and Lin Hing. Wealthy Chinatown businessmen who also owned the 6-story brick building that housed the restaurant. Mon Lay Won wasn't just for food. It hosted Oriental club dinners. For example, a group of about 40 Chinese men who had cut off their queues and adopted American dress. They spoke English fluently. The point of these dinners was to give American guests a new perspective on the Americanized Chinese community. So it made sense that when Mon Lay Won first opened, they had Mayor Strong help dedicated. Just like in Guangzhou and Hong Kong, restaurants weren't only for eating, they were where political and community influence was built. Menus alone won't show us that. Mon Lay Won hosted banquets for 150 Chinese men returning to China. Think about the cultural impact for both local and transnational communities with just that banquet. When Chinatown celebrated the return of the Tammany Hall political machine in 1897, a banquet was held there. The Chinese consul general appeared in full robes. The mayor-elect, Van Wyck, didn't show up though. It showed a changing sentiment toward the Chinese. A year earlier, Li Hongzhang, a diplomat from the late Qing dynasty, was supposed to attend a banquet at Mon Lay Won. The menu was published everywhere, but he never stepped foot in Chinatown. Then there were the regular banquets, weddings, holidays, people coming and going between the US and China. Li Songquan, one of the wealthiest merchants in the community, married Loy Hao, a 17-year-old from Shandong. Great tables loaded down with every delicacy known to the culinary art of the Chinese caterer: young pig, birds' nests, ho kim man, chop suey, chow wan. One banquet for Colonel Robert Mitchell Floyd in 1897 printed the Chinese words upside down. Mon Lay Won was also kind of a cafeteria for the Tongs, the benevolent organizations. It was a better time for high-end Chinese restaurants before racist policies eventually choked off the industry. In 1890, it didn't take much to impress. or disgust Americans at a Chinese restaurant. It is impossible to give the names of the different kinds of food one wrote, but the tea of which they gave me a potful was delicious. No one knows what rice tastes like until he has eaten it cooked by a Chinaman. Here's Annabelle's review of Mon Lay Won in 1914 on a road trip from Maine to New York. Here we had refreshments of chop suey, boiled rice, and delicious tea. The place was quaintly attractive and very clean. The tables were beautifully inlaid with pearl. We afterward bought some chopsticks and inspected the kitchen, which was immaculately clean, and the food all looked very inviting. I can't even tell if that's a good review or a diss. Here in my hands is probably the menu that Annabelle received at the restaurant. The front features Fo Lok Sao, the three-star gods in Chinese mythology. Fo represents blessings. He's dressed like an ancient official wearing a high cap and broad belt. It's very easy to notice. Lok is the god of prosperity and fertility, often shown holding a child. Sao is for longevity, usually depicted with a peach of immortality and a staff. The restaurant's slogan at the bottom, "We can make a night in China for you." They were clearly aiming for American patrons. Dinners for clubs and parties, Chinese orchestra, string band, and songsters, furnished at short notice. Inside there's a modest bill of fare. 48 dishes, 12 special dishes, 9 preserves, and 4 teas. Clearly tailored for Americans. They even served ice cream, Horton's ice cream. It was the ice cream brand in America since 1851. By 1900, Horton's claimed they supplied over half of New York's ice cream, delivered by couple hundred horses and also automobiles. Eventually, like most small producers, they were bought out in 1930. On the back is an acrostic poem. Acrostic poem is like each line begins with a letter that eventually forms some sort of secret message. My bird's nest soup is first, of course. On top of this, black fish with sauce. Nice rich omelette a la Chinese, luscious roast squabs with brown gravy, a fried shark fin from the Yellow Sea. You next take chicken with mushrooms free. Wonderful chicken roasted and brown. Order lychee nuts, best in town. Nice golden limes or fresh green plums. Choice pineapple, will you have some? Oolong tea or rice, wine free. My bill of fare is first, you see. Please try our cakes of sponge or rice, a dainty treat. You will find them nice. No other place has a menu hither or yon you can compare with the Mon Lay Won. Yes, this definitely reminds me of me just reading all the Dr. Seuss books to my kid at night. So you get the secret message is Mon Lay Won Company. But by now, I actually realized this wasn't entirely unusual. Menus from Chinese restaurants like Moon Cafe or Shanghai Lo in San Francisco included poems too. But as for who Jimmy is, I have no idea. Down at the bottom, an ad for Pang's celebrated Chinese cigarettes. Kwai F. Pang was an Americanized Chinaman, a Chinese tea merchant based in Flatbush, Brooklyn, who had an American wife. He once told the newspaper, "There is a splendid opportunity for Americans to open extensive trade relations with the new China." 100 years later, how much has changed and how much hasn't? That's it for today's episode. 100 videos in, and we're still talking about Mon Lay Won. If you like our content, subscribe to the channel. See you soon.